Back with another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadilla from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. I'm Soren Petrel from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Last time out, we gave you our projections for the defensive side of the ball. This time out, we're looking at the offensive side of the ball. How many offensive linemen will the Chiefs keep? Sam McDowell was obsessed with how could you keep 7 wide receivers last year. Are they going to make that critical mistake yet again? Will there be a fullback on this roster? Should the Chiefs be carrying more than 2 quarterbacks this year? Do they actually carry 4 tight ends? Are they quality tight ends? We're breaking down the Chiefs' offensive roster, at least our projections for it, here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadilla, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petrel. Jeff Chadilla is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petrel is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadilla, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petrel.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it here at a different time. Trying to space it out, trying to be more up to date. Practices done, at least practices that are open to the public and to the media are done, and getting ready for that first preseason game. We wanted to take our shot, gentlemen, at what the roster will look like. Not that this is going to be right. There could be injuries. There could be different things that are there. But right now, the way we think that roster would shape up as we think the Kansas City Chiefs would do it, right? Like not necessarily how we would do it because, somebody may have, Kadarius Toney on there and others might not think that's necessarily the right way to go. I mean, let's start with a little bit of what we learned from the exercise. Sam, we've talked all along. I've been up there to, I think it's 8 practices. You've only missed like 2 or 3 the whole time. You're the most equipped. What did you learn from putting this all together?
They've got a lot of tough decisions on offense this year, and I don't know if it's necessarily for the same reason everyone thinks it is, just because they've got so many talented players. But I think part of this exercise for the Chiefs needs to be, who else will somebody pick up if I cut this guy? Can I get this guy back on my practice squad? Because that may lead them in a different direction than just who they think is their best at each position.
Yeah, I agree. Jeff, anything in particular jump out at you?
Well, I think for me, as I went through the exercise, it was more – we didn't do this last year, so this is the first time I've gone through this with you guys. But I was surprised at how much I was trying to figure out, define roles for each player. And usually with backups, you're talking about just, okay, this guy's a depth piece. He's just somebody there in case somebody else gets hurt. But I was looking at all these guys like, does this guy fit here? And if he does, that means this guy's got to go. And so I thought as I got down lower and lower to the guys who were kind of the bottom of the barrel, I was like, this guy might actually contribute in some way. So yeah. I was surprised by that.
Do we all agree that, if you're a championship caliber club, you should be cutting guys that end up on other teams, and you should not be scouring the waiver wire? You should not need to scour the waiver wire to find guys to replace. Let's not talk about, I'm just talking about in general. Jeff, is a championship club generally picking up guys after the final cuts?
No, usually you're pretty flush with talent, because the top end is so strong that the guys at the bottom usually are guys you've either drafted who you have futures with, or they're just guys like, I think about when they picked up the corner who went to San Francisco, Charvarius Ward, a few years ago. Like that probably doesn't happen in today's world with the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you go back to the first year of Andy Reid, they had 4 or 5 guys that were playing. I forget all the names, but there was a safety, a tight end, and all these different guys because they were a 2-14 team. That's what you do. Based on that, Sam, if we take that principle that that's what it should be, if you're a championship caliber club, you don't need to go pick up guys off the waiver wire. Were you surprised? I know running back's a spot that we've talked about before. Were you surprised? And I'll remind you, you're muted. Were you surprised that, the roster looks the way it does at the running back spot for a club that's trying to win a third consecutive championship?
Yeah, I mean, I've said that since training camp. I still think that they could be in the mix and looking to see what other running backs might be cut. But keep in mind, a lot fewer guys get picked up than people anticipate because you have to bring guys in, teach them the offense. You just had all of training camp for the purpose of doing that. And now you start over with guys from scratch. Like, you really have to like players or still be, a recently drafted guy, for example, that gets cut and you had a high draft grade on him. You want to see what he's got. I think a lot of people do this exercise and go, oh, well, this guy's for sure going to get picked up. If I cut this guy, he for sure is on another roster. And it just doesn't typically work that way. There's fewer guys picked up than people anticipate there are.
Yeah, you got to know the program. You got to know the offense. You got to know the defense. That makes it a little bit more difficult to just grab a guy and say you're going to plug him in after you've been practicing through OTAs, mini camps, and then a full training camp to do it. I think that's a great point. By the way, if you're looking for insurance, a great point. We're probably brought to you by here in the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance, serving the greater Kansas City area, all throughout the Midwest as well, covering all the important things in your world, home, business, life, even fun stuff as well, like motorcycles, boats, ATVs, you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll have you covered with David Starnes Allstate. It's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdown, transportation expense coverage when you got to take that ride in for a little pit stop, auto replacement protection, keep you on the road in style, and much, much more. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today. The things in your life most important to you. Let's start, gentlemen, with the quarterback position, Sam. I think everybody's pretty confident Patrick Mahomes and Carson Wentz are going to be there. Or do we want to go over our locks first? We had a group that we all agreed upon. These guys are locks. Do we want to give the locks that we think there's no debating about first? What do we want?
Sure. They can do that.
Sure.
Let's do that. We came up with locks are Patrick Mahomes and Carson Wentz. Locks are Isaiah Pacheco. Only at running back, and I think there might be some discussion on that. I think there are guys that are going to be on this team, but I don't know that they're necessarily a lock right here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire's name comes to mind. Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Justin Watson. I think everyone's agreed on those four wideouts. I think Travis Kelce, Jared Wiley, because he's a draft pick, and Noah Gray, just because of his abilities, are on this team. Kingsley Suamataia, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Juwan Taylor. The starting offensive line is a lock, and Wanya Morris is going to make this roster if he doesn't win the job. Whoever doesn't win that left tackle job is on the roster. That is the group of players. So we've got 16 players. We all had 25 on defense. You've got your 3 special teams guys. So we've got 9 spots really that are being vied for right now. That, does that seem low? The lock part of the equation, Jeff?
No. I think that's about where it needs to be. I mean, I think we can quibble about some of these guys. I think there are more locks than you probably have, but just for consensus, I went with your list. Okay. But I think overall, what we have is pretty much those locks you named what we're going to have.
Okay. I think, there's some other names that I think are going to be there, but I think a strong camp by some other people could take them out. Sam, would you have more than 16?
No, I mean, I think that there's some guys like you mentioned that have a better chance than others to make it. But other than those 16, I mean, if guys aren't on your roster, I don't know that I'm going to say you're nuts for not including somebody else on your roster. I guess 17 that I might debate might be Mike Caliendo. He's got a lot of snaps with the first team at lineman, but I don't know that anyone else would we classify as a stunner if they didn't make it.
Okay. Let's do the easiest. Let's do the quarterback, Sam. Carson Wentz at the backup. Patrick Mahomes obviously starting. You make a candidacy for anybody to be the third quarterback. Is there any reason for this team to carry a third quarterback? Is anybody a threat to not be there if you wanted to put another quarterback on the practice squad?
No, I mean, it makes less sense than ever before because the NFL in March passed a rule that allows you to elevate your practice squad quarterback to the game day roster in case of emergency. So, given that rule, like that was the only reason for the Chiefs to potentially keep a third quarterback, and the NFL has subtracted that reason. So, there's no reason for the Chiefs to keep a third guy. And frankly, like Ian Book and Chris Oladokun is a fantastic guy to have in your locker room, by the way. But he hasn't played well enough to fear losing him. We'll see what the 3 preseason games change that.
How many teams keep 3 anymore, Jeff?
That's what I was. Well, right off the top of my head, I'm trying to think.
It should be few. It should be fewer this year, though, based on that rule.
Yeah, it should be fewer. I mean, I think the Niners, because of the way their year went a couple of years ago, had 3.
Right.
I think most teams go with 2, and I'm trying to remember the last time the Chiefs had more than 2. I mean, it's been a while, hasn't it?
They actually kept 3 in 2022.
Who was the third guy?
Did they keep Bouchel out? Yeah, I think they kept Bouchel out of camp in 2022 and cut him last year. And look, I mean, he outplayed Blaine Gabbert last year, and they still cut him and lost him to the Bills practice squad. But only that's the only time since 2019. So 3 of the last 4 years, they've just stuck with the 2.
Yeah. All right, Sam, do you have just the 2?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Carson Wentz, I think they've got the best backup quarterback that they've had. So that's another reason. I don't think there's anybody that you can even be looking at. Do you think this is better than Blaine Gabbert, better than Chad Henne? Is this the best backup situation they've had so far?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. And let's face it, if they're going to the backup quarterback for any long stretches, it's not going to be a great year anyway. So it's one of those, who cares who the third guy is? If Mahomes is down, the season is in turmoil.
Yeah. What is it? Who was the Tom Moore? Great story Ron Jaworski told when he was watching practice when Tom Moore was the offensive coordinator of the Colts, and Peyton Manning was taking every rep, and he walked over to him. He's down the side and said, "Hey, Tom, why don't you give some reps to the backup?" You see, because if 18 goes down, we're effed, and we don't practice effed. I don't think do that, though. I mean, I think Carson Wentz can win you football games, and I'm intrigued by what Carson Wentz would look like, at week 8, week 9, being around Andy Reid, being coached up by Andy Reid. I think this is the best candidate. Now, the problem is he's only signed to the 1 year. And because I think he's smart, like if he does get in there for a couple of games, looks really good playing for Andy Reid, he could parlay that into a potential starting job next year. I think this is smart, and more quarterbacks, instead of going to be a starting quarterback on a piss poor team and start right away with a defensive minded coach and a hot mess of talent on offense, go to a place where you might get 1 or 2 games to really showcase and learn, about how Patrick Mahomes plays quarterback, how Andy Reid coaches the quarterback position. I think this is really smart by him. I think it'd be great if you were the Chiefs, if you had another year, but he did look good for a game or 2, and you could try to do the old Andy Reid trick of spinning him for a draft pick of some kind, but he'll be a free agent at the end of this year. So we'll see where it goes.
I mean, Stern, you make a good point. Like, that's the biggest takeaway from this quarterback depth chart, even if it's only 2 guys, is Carson Wentz can play. And I don't know that we've said that about the recent backups in the same way, but just to give people a perspective, the Chiefs have had to play their backup quarterbacks frequently during the Patrick Mahomes era, twice in the playoffs. I mean, when Patrick Mahomes injures his ankle against the Jaguars, Chad Henne leaves a touchdown drive in a game the Chiefs end up winning by a touchdown. And the year before, Patrick Mahomes misses a quarter and a half against the Browns that Chad Henne has to play. The year before that, you've got Matt Moore starting 2 games because of the dislocated kneecap, and Chad Henne was injured during the 2019 Super Bowl season. So, by the way, 2 of those years are Super Bowl championship years that the Chiefs have had, that they've had to use their backup quarterback at some point.
Yeah, but he came back and played. I'm talking about if he's out for the year.
Oh, yeah.
This is 2 or 3 games. Like, they're in trouble.
Absolutely. But I'm just making the point that, like, the backup quarterback in Kansas City matters.
Oh, it's crucial.
They do.
It's crucial. Yeah.
I think it matters to every team. Like, you need to be, if you're a championship caliber team, you shouldn't be just skating in by the, skin of your teeth. You should be getting, you should be solidly in the mix. And so you need a guy that can win you a couple of games to keep you afloat. That happens more than I think people need to. I mean, listen, the Dolphins went undefeated, and I think Bob Greasy didn't start 9 games, right? I know that's a long time ago, but it's reality. Jeff
Yeah.
Hostetler is real. I mean, a quality backup quarterback. I think teams don't put enough resources towards the backup quarterback.
Yeah. The Browns and the Vikings played 4 quarterbacks last year. The Niners played 3 quarterbacks the year before. It's real.
All right, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was just gonna say there's one other point about the backup quarterback that I don't think the Chiefs will do this, but I'm interested to see if I'm wrong about this. Is the Chiefs love to have a tight end run a quarterback sneak because they refuse to actually run a quarterback sneak, and you'd like to have rather than a tight end, a guy that can actually throw the football, that has the threat of throwing the football there. And Carson Wentz had a better quarterback sneak conversion over the last 3 years than Jalen Hurts did. He is really effective at the quarterback sneak. And I think the Chiefs should utilize him in that role this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's something they'd love to do. I would love for them to find a good running quarterback that, can throw, right? Like if you got Jacoby Brissett, a guy that you think, hey, I think this guy can be a quarterback. I loved when the Colts were using Jacoby Brissett to run the quarterback sneak. And I think the Chiefs should be looking for that guy. In fact, I've had conversations. I think they'd love to find that guy, but they don't want to just burn it on a glorified running back. They want somebody that can actually play quarterback. And those guys have never made it down to them. I think,
what was Blake Bell? He was a quarterback once.
Yes, he was. And I lobbied for that a lot. Yeah. And then I saw him do it, and I'm like, okay, don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like
he did it in college. He was the bulldozer in college.
I know, and he forgot how to read, the end, and I don't know what he had fully embraced tight end mode because he wasn't good at it when they gave him a shot at it. Being good at it, that's GAN Asphalt and Concrete. 30 years they've been solving Kansas City's parking lot problems. Nationally recognized full service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear, like I said, since 1994. Don't risk accidents, liabilities in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your parking lot as safe as possible. You can get your seal coating done right now as well. Got cooler weather here in Kansas City. If you're catching us, we're going live here on a Friday morning. It was 54, I think, when I woke up. Those temperatures are going to start cooling off. It gets down too low. You can't seal coat that parking lot. Book it now. Weekends are even booking up fast. Call GAN Asphalt and Concrete at 816-484-3338. That's 816-484-3338. You can always find them online at GANasphalt.com. All right, gentlemen, let the games really begin. Let's get to the running back spot. Sam, we put Pacheco as the only lock. I think if you bring Edwards-Helaire back, you want him on the roster. I don't know that that's necessarily the best idea, but I think he's going to be there. Anybody else? Where do you go with the running back spot?
Yeah, so this was the toughest position for me. I'll put that out front. I've got 4 running backs on the roster, and I might be out in front of my skis here on this because the 4th guy I have is Carson Steele, the undrafted guy to UCLA who's had a terrific camp. We haven't seen him in a game yet. So, look, I mean, the Chiefs are not bringing guys to the ground in terms of tackling in the first couple of weeks of camp. So this is the position I think could most change based on preseason results. We've never seen Louis Rees-Zammit in an NFL game. They have him lined up as the first kick returner frequently. So they're trying to give themselves a reason to keep Rees-Zammit on the team. But Carson Steele, I think, so far in training camp, he continues to climb up the depth chart. They've moved him to fullback in some instances, and they think he's picked it up very quickly. And so I think if that is a possibility, look, they got away from the fullback because they felt like they didn't need the fullback. But if that fullback can also play running back in a position where Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and kudos to him last week, he opened up about the fact that he's been dealing with PTSD for a long time now. It does keep him out of practice frequently. He's got this vomiting syndrome as well that I think the Chiefs they have to realize that it can pop up at any time. You could potentially be missing him in a situation, in a game maybe. Deneric Prince is an undrafted free agent from last year. And so, like, those 4 guys, I don't think there's enough solid evidence that those first 3 guys on the list are going to be there for you to only keep 3. And so I think the 4th comes down to Carson Steele or Louis Rees-Zammit. I think both guys you could get back on your practice squad, but I think you're going to have to keep one. So Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, Prince, and Steele are the 4 that I've got on the list.
All right, Jeff, how do you look at the running back spot?
I have the first 3 the same: Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, and Deneric Prince, who seems to be a training camp darling or a guy people talk about all the time. And then I went with Reese Emmett as my fourth guy. I haven't seen Carson Steele play, and maybe he can play himself into that job, but I am a little bit wary of the idea of Andy Reid going back to a full-time fullback or having a fullback on the roster. They barely used it when they had guys like who was the guy who's the sausage? I can't forget his name.
Anthony Sherman, and then Michael Burton.
Yeah, he was probably those two guys probably the most used, but it seems like it's just the whole NFL has gotten away from fullbacks, and it seems like Andy Reid was ahead of the curve on that. And I do think they're trying really hard to find a way to make Reese Emmett work. And the fact that he can kick, I just think Dave Tobe has got an affinity for the guy, and that's probably going to get him a job. So I'll go with him.
I like what Patrick said here. He said if you knew CEH had to deal with that, he said, it's sad that he has to deal with that, I guess I should say. But if you know that as the Chiefs, why didn't you look at another running back too in free agency? You can find many cheap backup options. I do agree. Like we've talked about this a lot, that the offseason, and in the draft, we thought, okay, they didn't grab anybody in free agency. Not that they were going to grab somebody expensive, but they didn't do anything in the draft either. And I think they probably would have liked to, but again, not to be harsh, I think Patrick's right. I mean, the humanity of it, yes, we want him to be healthy. I'm glad that the Chiefs, the NFL, and society as a whole are taking mental health much more seriously than they have in the past. But let's be honest. I mean, availability is a big part of your ability. You don't get to sit at podiums and say those things, like it's the back of a wrestling T-shirt, a high school wrestling T-shirt or something, and then not, deliver on it when it's time to make decisions. I think it is a little bit. And first of all, there's nothing really in the production that says that Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be back. He is on a veteran minimum, and that's why I think he's very cuttable. Like I think a lot of people be like, well, they brought him back so they're keeping him. They like him. They brought him back because he knows the program, and let's see if somebody beats him out. I wouldn't be shocked if they're sitting there rooting for 2 or 3 guys to knock him out and go with someone else, not because of his condition, but because of his ability on the field. But I don't think anybody has, right? Like I don't think anybody is definitively, shown to be better than what he's been.
But let's be honest though. Like most of the misdefined personnel moves on this team tend to revolve around offensive players. It's like the defense is always kind of straightforward, but there's always 2 or 3 guys on offense. You're like, why are they in love with this guy? And we'll get to one pretty soon.
Former first round picks too, Jeff. Yeah. I mean, it's high draft capital guys like they're to add to that theme.
Yeah, I've got the same 4 that Sam does, and I do think the Carson Steele hype is real. One, I'm puzzled by the fact that Andy Reid is publicly hyping him up. I mean, that is a billboard to come get this guy if you're another team. Like, he is so close to the vest. But I also think what Sam said when we opened this, like, oh, you're worried you're going to lose all these guys? And teams don't poach near as much as they did because there's so much that goes into focusing on the offense. But I want to give you some stats here, all right? We like numbers. Tell me this. 1,475 yards in 13 games, averaging 5.6 yards a carry, 41 catches for 403 yards, and 1 touchdown. You know whose numbers those were in college?
Steals at Ball State?
No, but they were Kareem Hunt's at Toledo. Okay. 1,475 and 5.6 as a senior, 41 for 403. He had 11 total touchdowns. Now I'm going to give you Carson Steele's numbers as a sophomore at Ball State. Same conference, right? Carson Steele, 1,556 for 5.4 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns. Only caught 29 for 166, so 12 less receptions and about 200 plus yards. Not as good a receiver as Kareem Hunt. Same 1 touchdown. Follow that up by going to UCLA for a year, 847, 5.1 yards per carry. He's not Kareem Hunt. That's not my point. But the production is there, right? There's Kareem Hunt-like production at the same level. And I think this guy runs tough. He runs physical. I'm with you, Sam. I can't wait to see him in a game and see if he is a tackle breaker, right? See what he can do. I think the fullback, to your point, Jeff, I think the fullback side of the equation is like that's window dressing. Like Andy's like, okay, we don't need this, but if I got this guy and I think he can do it, maybe I can bring some of those things back to the equation. He's a significantly I think the potential is there. I don't say he's better because I didn't see Anthony Sherman run at Connecticut. And frankly, I didn't watch Carson Steele run at, Ball State either. I'm just looking at stats.
That's right. You should have, though, based on those numbers.
I'll say what I've seen of them, and I've seen both of them play in training camp, and this kid looks a lot shiftier and like he's got a lot more as a pure ball carrier. And then if you had to give him the ball, you're getting kind of a Spencer Ware type. Is that a fair comp, Sam, for what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, we're putting this guy on the roster before we have seen him actually in a game. I mean, my worry about Carson Steele is that the fullback thing is because of a lack of speed as much as it is because he fits into a fullback. It's, hey, we like this guy's shiftiness, but he's too slow. So let's see how he is at fullback. Like, that's my concern about Carson Steele. They've obviously opened Saturday in Jacksonville. I'm just interested to see what his usage is, how much he plays with the first team, but he's getting first team reps now. And so Deneric Prince has been getting first team reps a lot. Like, I don't think he should feel like he's solidly on the team because he had a great first 2 weeks of camp a year ago and then just bottomed out after the game started. And so that's why we all put one lock on this roster. And I think most people who are at camp every day would tell you, Jeff, that your pick with Reese Zammit is more likely to make the team. That's why I opened mine by saying I may be out in front of the skis here by saying let's go ahead and put Carson Steele. It's a sort of a prediction about that I think he's going to perform in the preseason games.
When you say most people would say he makes the team, off what you've seen of him as a running back or the fact of where he's running with special teams and as a kick returner?
Totally special teams. I have not been impressed with Reese Zammit as a running back. And look, I mean, he carries the ball high. He carries his body high. And it's certainly adjustments that he's made since OTAs. And it's an amazing thing that this guy's even on a roster bubble, having never played this sport. I mean, it's a hell of an accomplishment, but I just think that gap is too wide to ask him to play. And given that, it's a good lead into our next group at wide receivers because him not making the team affects some of my picks at wide receiver as well.
It does. We're brought to you by our friends at Besame Wellness. You can save 25% on your entire order at Besame Wellness. Just use the promo code podcast25. That's podcast25 and save 25% at Besame Wellness.
Besame Wellness, online or curbside. Shop daily at Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 9. Sundays 10 to 6. Locations in North Kansas City, Liberty, Smithville on Berry Road, and in Warrensburg. Even delivery for medical marijuana. Getting your cannabis has never been easier. We at Besame Wellness strive to make your life as easy as possible and cannabis as accessible as possible.
Let's talk about the wide receiver, Sam. That is next. You led right into it. What do you got there? We've got our 4 locks: Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Justin Watson. What else are you keeping?
So I'm only keeping 6. I guess maybe it's wishful thinking because I still could see them making the same mistake they did last year and keeping 7 guys. And those 2 guys, Richie James and Justin Ross, each had less than like 150 receiving yards last year. There was absolutely no reason to have 7 wide receivers. And I went back and looked at what I wrote last year when they kept 7 and pointed out that they've only kept 6 even 2 other times during the Patrick Mahomes era. And in one of those years, before last year, one of those years was 2020, was Marcus Kemp was the 6th wide receiver. You know how many catches he had that year as a 6th wide receiver? 1. 11 yards on 1 catch. They did not even need a 6th guy. He played special teams. That's why he was on the roster. The other time was 2018 during the Patrick Mahomes era where they keep 6 wide receivers. And the 5th wide receiver was DeAnthony Thomas, and he played 2 snaps per game on average. He caught 3 passes all year as the number 5. Like there's no good argument to keep 7 wide receivers. And I think that the other part of the argument is we spent all last year talking about Patrick Mahomes was not on the same page with his wide receivers. When you throw 7 of them out there, that process takes a lot longer. They still are integrating new wide receivers into this offense with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. So I say all that to say, I still think they'll end up keeping 7. I'm only.
So who's your 6? Who are your 2 others?
I'm only keeping 6 on my roster. We put Rashee Rice, Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Justin Watson as locks. That's accurate. This is a total what I think the Chiefs will do last 2 picks, and I've got Sky Moore and Nico Remigio. And the reason that I mentioned not keeping Luis Rees-Zammit, him and Remigio are frequently the top 2 guys because you're going to have 2 kick returners this year line up simultaneously. It's typically those 2. And I think if you cut Rees-Zammit, that Remigio's path to the roster becomes a lot easier. The cuts, which I don't know if we talk about now or talk about maybe after you guys pick your picks, because the cuts include McCole Hardman, Kadarius Toney, and Justin Ross on my list.
So, but you said they're going to keep 7, and then you said, this is what I think they're going to do. You gave us 6, and then you said, but I think they're going to keep 7.
I cannot put 7 wide receivers on any roster projection I have, even if I think they're going to make the same mistake twice.
Not enough columns.
I can't do it. I can't put 7 wide receivers on there twice.
I can make the spreadsheet bigger. If you need, I can add some. I don't know how proficient you are with Excel, but I can add to that if you wanted. All right, Jeff. What do you think?
Well, I can do 7, and I will do 7.
Okay.
I think it's going to be 7, and I'll go Rice, Hollywood, Worthy, Watson. I have Hardman making it, just because going back to that. Hey, you know what? The Clyde Edwards-Helaire theory of why is he still around? He knows the offense. He's a toy. Someone just put it up there on the comment section that Andy Reid likes his toys, likes familiar toys. Sky Moore, because he's been around. I think they don't give up on guys too easily. And Kadarius Toney, for the same reason as McCole Hardman and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What the fuck? Why not?
The line of the podcast.
That's a chat.
It's got multiple meanings too. Like,
that's right.
Like, what are you doing?
Just
what the hell? Give him a chance.
That's right. Give him a shit. But I agree with Sam, though. I think Remigio, to me, this was a very tough thing to put him in there, but I kept removing him in place of Rees-Zammit. This group, what I don't like, not a lot of guys can play special teams, but I think that's the group they're going to go with.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, top that, Seren.
I can't. There's no way to top it. I am torn. These are, you mentioned the tough cuts, and we can get into some of those towards the end. This is one where I think I might give you 6, and then just wait to the very end, because I think there's a swing between 2 guys on who it is. I'm going to give you 6. I'm going to go with what I have on the sheet and say this is what it is. But for me, it's a debate between a 7th wideout and a 10th offensive lineman, just to give you a peek into the covers of what's coming. And I don't like the answer that I think they'll give for either one of them. I think they both should be gone, to be honest with you. I think there are other places to look, or you could go find some. This is the disappointing. Their 25th guy on their roster, I think, will be a disappointment in my mind on what's on there. I think it'll be a guy that they have invested draft capital in, and a guy that has not done anything, and a guy that they're still trying to justify. I think this is the weak spot of the Chiefs, is they just will not give up on some guys, which is amazing, because like when they took Breeland Speaks and it didn't work, they walked on him. And I thought that was one of the strongest things you could say about Brett Veach was his first pick as the guy making the call. He went into the first year. It didn't work. They moved him around. They did some different things. They were going to try him. He got hurt, and then they got out of there. They didn't keep him around for 4 years trying to justify the draft pick. And now I see some guys. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is one of them. Like, to me, wouldn't you want to be looking for a running back that somebody else never really let on the field, that you had a good grade on, coming out and say, well, let's give him to our coaches and see what we can do with this guy. And so it's very frustrating to see Kadarius Toney, and I think even Sky Moore. Now, I will say this. Wide receivers generally break out. Some will do it in the first year, but many of them, it's year 2 or year 3. There are examples of guys that Devontae Adams had like 500 yards, then boom, he became Devontae Adams. He was just a guy for 2 years in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, mind you. So it's not like, well, he needed a quarterback. And so you can break out in your 3rd year. I don't think that's going to happen with Sky Moore, but I think they're going to hope it's going to happen, and they're going to keep him on the roster. And he's had some moments in the practices that I've seen where you see what they liked in him. I wish they'd get him in the slot, quit screwing around. That's the size he is. That's what he looks like. Just play him there. Stop trying to make him an outside receiver. But I think they keep him just and I'm basing this solely on just the vibe I get from talking to people. He sounds like he's on the team when I hear people discuss him. Now, maybe I'm the sucker and they want us putting this out there that somebody will give him a 7th round pick for Sky Moore at cutdown day and they have no intentions, because I haven't seen it with Sky Moore yet. But I've got him on the team, and I've got Nico Remigio making it for the kick return reasons. I don't think Luis Rees-Zammit could even come close to walking out on the field in a regular game. And I do think that if you open everything up with the passing attack, I think we're going to see the running attack get better. So I'd like to see real running backs out there, but I think the deep ball is going to back some people off, and there's going to be more running lanes. And so that's one of the reasons why I like Carson Steele. But I think Nico Remigio is the guy at kick return. Everything Sam said is right.
So you think it's one or the other? You think it's Rees-Zammit or this guy, Remigio?
Yeah, based upon how they're doing it. And I think Nico Remigio can actually play receiver, and I don't think Luis Rees-Zammit can. I mean, they got to where Marcus Kemp was in the AFC Championship game in 22, right? Like, it was Kemp and
that wasn't willingly.
Marquez out there.
But Juju was down and Travis Kelce was hurting. And so they got to where they were like, I think at one point they lined up in Marcus Kemp and Noah Gray with the 2 wideouts, right? That's how big people don't remember how much they were leaning at the tape. The AFC Championship game in 22. They needed that game to end and end quickly. But so I think Remigio makes it for that reason. Kadarius Toney's the guy that I just don't know that they can quit. But getting hurt again, and Andy Reid's comment at the mic, Sam, I'm sure you were there. I think you've been there every practice I've been at. And when he came to the mic and said when he was hurt, and he said, well, I went over and said, hey, get back in there. I didn't realize he was hurt. And so, he made a point to tell us he was going over to a guy who was down on the ground and telling him, get up and get in the practice. Let's go. That's not Andy Reid's style. He was making it public. I wasn't taking this crap, right? I was like, let's go. And for that reason, I think they may have finally been like, we have given this guy every opportunity. No more.
I think the patience is worn out with Kadarius Toney. He's been running with the third string players. That quote came on July 31st, so it's been 9 days. But I actually thought the quote before it was even more telling, because somebody had asked him how much wiggle room Toney had given his injury. At that time, he was dealing with an ankle injury. And he said, I mean, you want to be there every day. Anytime you miss, especially during install days, you're missing a load there. He's got to take care of what he's got and get himself back out there. So that's not somebody who you think is dealing with something serious. And by the way, he's come back from that ankle injury, and now he has a back injury. I just think that the patience has run out with Kadarius Toney during training camp, when we all thought it should have run out during, of course, the last postseason, the last season. Like, there's been plenty of opportunities to move on from Kadarius Toney.
That's right.
But I just think this injury stuff, he's missed a lot of days. He's almost never been running with the number ones out there. He's not even one of the guys returning punts. They've got like 4 guys that return punts during the drills. I just think that the patience has run out with Kadarius Toney. Now, the other aspect of this, though, when you go through it, is, look, the wide receiver is by far the most interesting discussion, because everybody has an argument that gets them on the roster, which Kadarius Toney can just say, I'm more talented than a lot of these guys you're keeping. Mecole Hardman can say, I've been here. I run horizontal routes. Hollywood Brown doesn't do that. Give me on the roster. I'm good with the ball in my hands on the jet sweeps. You like to run those plays. When I wasn't here a year ago, you weren't able to run those plays. Plus, with Mecole Hardman, you can say, if he goes to another team, we get that team's playbook as well, right?
That's right.
Then you've got Justin Ross was really quiet for the first 10 days of camp. He had a terrific week this last week. And he can say, I can high point a football. Nobody else on your roster can high point the football the way that I can. If you want to have a goal line threat, I'm your guy.
Yeah, they throw that so much.
Exactly. So that's the thing, is that that's why I don't have him on the rosters. It's not a pass that they typically like to throw. Yeah. But I'm just saying, they all have a unique argument to be on the roster. And this is going to come down to preferences. And the reason that I went with Sky Moore and Nico is specifically because Sky Moore, I agree with Stren. He can be a slot guy. He runs underneath routes. I don't think, other than Rashee Rice, you have that on your roster. And then with Nico, he's a kick returner. He's a punt returner. He can be on punts too. You can develop him into a gunner to where you can get more uses out of him. I'm not keeping the 6 most talented guys because I don't think the Chiefs keep the 6 most talented guys. I think they say, here's the 4. Here, what else do we need after that cutoff? After those 4 guys, what's absent from our roster?
Yeah, and I like this one. Steven says, we shouldn't overlook Patrick's impact. He may be done with KT, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I think it was clear late in that Raider game that he wanted people that can catch the ball, and they took Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore off, and the offense started clicking. So,
but it's just comical that it's taken all the drops, the offsides penalty, the complaining about not being heard, calling out Andy Reid. It's now we've reached our point with the guy. It's just laughable.
I think it speaks to how the Chiefs view themselves, which is we can change this person.
Yes,
we have all off season to get this right. He didn't show up to the proverbial Camp Mahomes. He didn't show up to OTAs. Now he's missing a lot of days of training camp. I think that they have proven that their theory on being able to fix this guy is wrong, and that this offseason has proven that to him more than the one bad regular season did.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are the guy who can't give up on the psycho girlfriend, because like they had one good afternoon where they went to the movies and she couldn't talk for 2 hours, and like, this is it. This is what I'm looking for, and I think that's the way they are with those things. If I'm wrong, I think McCole Hardman's in for Remigio, and they go, okay, he's a proven kick returner, and he makes it as the kick returner for all the reasons we've talked about. So I think that's the spot where we miss things. Don't miss.
Who's returning punts, by the way?
Well, Hardman's been returning punts. Remigio's been returning punts. Worthy's been returning punts, and occasionally Hollywood Brown's part of that mix as well. But the one last piece,
and that's Justin Ross's problem, right? He is just a one-trick
can't play special teams. Any phase of special teams.
Yeah, he's fragile. He can't cover. He's not a kick returner of any kind. He needs to go find a team that literally has no wide receivers, and he can be the number 2 wide out for him and be on the field because he can catch the football. He's got a great catch.
Fast. He's got a great catch radius. Doesn't have great agility. Doesn't get a lot of separation. Great catch radius. But what you just said about another team's strength is part of this equation that they're going to have to face at wide receiver, which is who else gets picked up if they cut him. With Hardman, and it's one of the reasons that I have him on the cut list, is specifically because I think he comes back on your practice squad. He was available for a very cheap salary until July. I don't see the evidence that he's going to be on another roster if you cut him. I think you can bring him back to your practice squad, and if you do, I think he'll be on the roster at some point in the regular season. With Justin Ross, look, somebody picks up Kadarius Toney. Somebody else looks at that talent and picks him up. With Sky Moore, I think it's less than 50-50 maybe, but there's definitely a chance that somebody has a great grade on him, a second-round grade like the Chiefs did, and likes still that grade, haven't seen a ton on film, and tries to pick him up. And I think Ross could be the same way. I think Ross could potentially wind up elsewhere if you lose him as well, and that's going to factor in to their decisions.
Yeah. Don't put your insurance needs off any longer. Get with our man, David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free with David Starnes Allstate. It's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks as well, like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your ride is in the shop, auto replacement protection, keep you on the road in style. It's all with David Starnes. Allstate Insurance. Look for them. Locations throughout the metro. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance, proudly bringing you the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Let's talk tight ends. Travis Kelce, Jared Wiley, Noah Gray, we put as locks. So the question is, Sam, do you have a 4th tight end for this team? Yes or no?
Yeah, I've got them keeping 4. Now, Irv Smith, I don't think has really stood out to me at all during camp, but I just think that last year, to guard against teams playing really light defenses against them and light boxes, they went heavy 13. They were a top 5 team in the NFL in terms of 13 personnel usage. Like, they used 3 tight ends. And so I think if you use 3 so frequently, you're going to want 4 on your roster. And Irv Smith cracks the roster. sorry to get off on a tangent here a little bit, but somebody asked, I think, a really good question, Seren, in the comments there about can the Chiefs deal any of these guys for a 7th round pick? They did that last year. They swapped a 6th for a 7th for Smith Marset to the Panthers. But I think that needs to be a bigger part of their equation is when it's a tough decision, put both guys on the market. Like, don't just make the decision that these are the 6 guys, these are the 7th guys you like, and then try and trade 7 or try and trade 8. Like, put 6 through 8 on the market. Whoever's got the biggest market, get your biggest return and keep the other guys.
While we're feeding going back, is this right? Joe says that Justin Ross had 139. He said reps last year. I don't know. Does that mean, is he saying in practice he had 139 reps on special teams? Do you remember him playing special teams at all last year? And either one of you guys?
Justin Ross played 73
special team snaps.
73 special team snaps a year ago.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. Kick coverage 50. I'm seeing kick coverage on PFF. They say kick coverage 50 and kick return 27. For the life of me, I don't remember that.
73, but those two positions change with the new kickoff rules as well. I mean, like, you want tacklers on your kickoff return now.
I think probably the 4 penalties. Yeah, go ahead.
Your point about Justin Ross going to a different team. You know, I was in Detroit, and you know who their darling for the 3rd receiver spot is right now? Doris Fountain.
It's who?
Doris Fountain. The guy was here, right?
Yeah.
They loved him over there.
Well, they loved him here. Like, he was a camp darling here. He always looks good in training camp, you know?
For what? You said for wide receiver 3, Jeff?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a stretch. That's a big stretch. You know, that's good news for everybody else in the NFC. I'll tell you that. Yeah. All right, so back to the tight end. So Irv Smith, you do have making it for the 13th.
Yes.
No. Okay. I've got Irv Smith making it as well. Jeff, do you have 3 tight ends, 4, 5?
I have 3. He didn't make it just because Kadarius Toney, Reese Sammet.
He's got to make room for Toney.
That's true. Now, maybe if Tony's out the way you guys see it, maybe he gets that spot. But I just think he's being an older guy. He has a history of being banged up. He went to the Bengals last year, and nothing came out of that. He's bounced around and never really made. If he's your 4th tight end and you're guaranteeing him money because he's got a high enough veteran status, I just don't see where he fits in the offense.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
I agree. All right. We're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. You can find them online right now at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Great Kansas City company solving parking lot problems since 1994. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. It brings us to the offensive line. Sam, we had 6 that we put in there. The starting 5, Suamataia, Tooney, Humphrey, Smith, Trey Smith, Jawan Taylor, and then Wanya Morris, whoever loses that left tackle battle. Those 6 are there. How many more do you have along the offensive line?
I've got 3 more, so 9 total.
Okay.
The 6 you mentioned, the guy that you referenced earlier without mentioning his name, Lucas Niang. Okay. Mike Caliendo has, like I said, he went with Tooney out. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Caliendo starts Saturday in Jacksonville. And then Hunter Norzad, the draft pick from last year, the 5th round pick, but you'll note that leaves off the 7th round pick from this recent draft class with CJ Hansen.
Yeah. Okay.
He gets cut or practice squad.
I think both, right? I think they'd like to have him back to the practice squad if they have the opportunity, if they do cut him. But he's had a tough camp.
Yeah. I think the same thing. I think he's headed to the practice squad as well. If you can get him there, right? Like that's one of the keys. I think you will get him there. I don't know. 7th round picks generally are pretty easy. Slide over to the practice squad. It will be interesting to see how much they play him. If they don't play him at all, then they're worried about thinking they need to hide him if he plays a lot, they feel pretty comfortable that he's going to get to the practice squad. Jeff, what do you have?
I have 4. I kept Hansen, but
Okay.
you guys have seen him more than I have. I'm going just on the fact that he's just a draft pick.
Okay.
Norzad, Caliendo, Wanye Morris. I'm cutting bait on Lucas Niang. Seen enough of that. It's only taken 5 years for me to see enough of that.
Yeah.
Can't stay healthy. He's playing guard now, right? Or trying him out at guard.
Well, they have played him a little bit, which I actually think is a bad sign. They played him with first team guard one day, which I actually think is a bad sign. Like you're trying to find value out of the player. Yeah. But Jeff, one thing I'd point out about your list is you only have one backup tackle on that list. Like Wanye Morris is the only guy.
Is it Joe Tooney, the great Joe Tooney, the left tackle option that we've never seen?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think
coming off of surgery and an injury. Yeah.
Let me make sure. Hunter Norzad, Mike Caliendo. Who else did you add?
Hansen and Morris. I guess Morris is the lock. So the only 3 I added: Caliendo, Norzad, and Hansen.
Okay. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. You got 9 total.
Yep.
12, 15, 18, 19, 23, 25. Yep. Okay. Yeah. I do think, and we haven't seen it, but Trey Smith is 6'6", 315 pounds. I mean, I got to believe Trey Smith can kick out to tackle in a pinch. I mean, they pretty much keep all, guys that are tackle looking fellas anyway.
I don't know. I don't like it. I want to be on record saying I really don't like that plan. I would just keep an extra tackle instead of that.
Well, what tackle do you love? Like,
I don't love any tackle. I love the thought of having a tackle on the roster. Like you've got to have 2 backup tackles on your roster, I think. Especially since you're allowed to dress the extra lineman, right? So I think you've got to be careful here.
I do think you have to be careful, but I agree. I think you put a tackle on. Do you really think someone's going to grab Lucas Niang and put him on their active roster? Sam?
Why wouldn't you rather have Niang than a flyer of somebody else who doesn't know the offense? Like he's been here 3 years.
Well, you're making it about C.J. Hansen versus Lucas Niang, right? Is that what you're saying?
I think if Hansen makes it, it's at the expense of like Irv Smith or like another position. I don't see an area where you can only keep one backup tackle.
But that's my point is I think they will have probably and I'm not going to take a shot at the first name, but I think there's a pretty good chance that
Godric.
Yeah.
Chu is what the players
Chu
call
Godric is going to make the practice squad. I think if you want Lucas Niang on your practice squad, you're going to be able to put him on your practice squad because I don't think anybody's grabbing him. And so really we're not like, that's the thing is if a guy goes down and he's down for the year, you just elevate one of those guys, right? Like all you got to do is get through the game you started when you lost 2 tackles. And Joe Tooney can go out there. Trey Smith can go out there. I think you can get there from here, right? That's all I'm saying. I get it. If they would go with 3 tackles on the active, there will be at least 2 and maybe 3 on the practice squad that they're just playing at all different spots to get there. So I think there is a path there. Now, I'm with, for my list, I've got the 6 and I do have Lucas Niang making it because I can't imagine a world where they just quit 2 of their crushes at the same time. I don't see the world where Kadarius and Lucas Niang are gone.
Yeah,
like, that's a world I dream of, but that's not a world I think I'll ever get to live in. Right? Like I don't think there's any way. That is and somebody put it up there. They guessed it. People were taking shots at it when I mentioned it. I came down. I had 24 guys, and I'm like Kadarius Toney or Lucas Niang. It's one of those guys, and I can't see a scenario where they can bring themselves to walk away from both those guys. I think Lucas Niang is terrible. I mean, I think he's terrible.
I'm with you on that.
The difference in those decisions, though, Soren, is wide receivers, I think, have much tougher cuts and guys that can help you despite not being starters. The linemen are insurance pieces. And so, like, if you're going to move on from one of those 2 guys, I agree with your final selection. Move on from Toney because you've got other wide receivers that can help you in any of the 17 games. You don't have that with linemen. They're insurance pieces. And, like, I would be more hesitant to make that decision, like to squeeze a different offensive lineman onto the roster at the expense of Niang for that reason.
Yeah. I think I don't think you're well, listen, if I were to make this what I would keep, I would not have Niang, and I would probably I would consider McCole Hardman off the people they have. But, to me, there are some veteran guys that you could have had and brought in, like, that could do this job better. But they still have Lucas Niang. I don't understand the reason for having Lucas Niang. I would rather have cut him and signed somebody that I haven't worked with yet, with the idea that I can make him better. How many freaking years do you have to work with a guy before you go, we can't make him better? And listen, we had Mitchell Schwartz on this podcast, and he said, listen, that's the strength of the coaching staff. They don't give up on guys, right? They don't give up on guys. And they just believe in you, and they love you, and they work with you. And I do think that is a strength. I think they get as much out of guys as you can possibly get. But I think at some point, somebody's got to be the adult in the room and go like, listen, the kid's got a drug problem and he's ruining everybody else's life. He's got to get out of the house. Like there are times it's time for tough love. Tough love with Kadarius Toney. Time for you to figure out whatever you're going to do, young man, with the rest of your life, because it's not play football for the Kansas City Chiefs. Lucas, time to figure out what the rest of your life is. If you can play football someplace else, that's awesome, but you can't do it here. And they, their strength is their weakness, which is often the case. Did you have any? That was my big dilemma, was between those. Did you have any, Jeff, that was like, okay, this one, or you regret, or you think could be something that they will regret not doing?
But the lineman, or just overall?
Overall.
Oh, yeah, the receiver was tough. Receivers, I think Remigio was a guy, I don't think Justin Ross can find a way into this group. I think that he is what he is. But Remigio is probably the one guy where I'm just like, it seems like he's doing all the right things, going to Mahomes camp in Texas, making plays. Tobe likes him as a returner, but it's just like, I think he was a tough one.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Sam?
Well, I've never been, look, I mean, I've been on the Chiefs beat since 2019. This is the 6th year doing this, and usually go into it pretty confident with your 53. I have never been so sure that my 53 man is wrong. I don't know where it's wrong. But the wide receiver, I've never been so sure that one position group is wrong. I don't think they keep the exact 6 wide receivers that I've got them keeping, but they're going to have wrinkles on offense, because there is just, when you go out to practice, I mean, the amount of guys that run with the first team on these wide receivers is remarkable. And same with the second team, even. Like, it's hard I couldn't tell you for certain who's had more first team reps between Justin Ross and Sky Moore and Remigio. It's difficult to tell the way that they rank guys. It's the beauty of training camp, is you get to watch practice and you don't in the regular season. So you get their intel. What do they think of these players? Even as we're not technically scouts and judging, like, we at least know what they think of guys. It's been tough to tell the way that they ranked some of these guys this year.
Well, and I think they're giving them the chance to prove themselves. Like, okay, here you go. This is like no excuses. We've got tape of you with Pat throwing the ball. So it's not like, whoa, the backup couldn't give me the ball. Like, they give themselves a chance to look at it. And I think they do that with the running backs as well, pretty well. Except for I haven't seen Luis Reese-Zammit with the ones, and I think it's because there's no reason to do it. It's there. I do like this.
Just hates Luis Reese.
I don't hate. I love the story, but I think he is the easiest practice squad guy in the world. He's clearly going to the practice squad, and why would anybody poach him? Like, there's no reason. So, like, considering him is ridiculous. I want to address this real quick. Terry said, Creed or Smith deals. Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith deals get done. There are negotiations going on with Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Nick Bolton. Those are the other guys. Now that Harrison Butker's been done, that they would like to get signed. My prediction is they get Creed Humphrey done, and the cost is exorbitant. The highest center APY right now is $13.5 million per year. The highest guard number is like 2021. I think he's going to get 2021. He's going to reset the center market. I think it's going to be $18, $19, $20 million for Creed Humphrey, and that's not going to leave enough for Trey Smith, which to me is why those things, I think it would have been nice to get done sooner. If you end up giving him top guard money at center, because usually teams sign centers before they get to this point. I think the Chiefs will do that as well. He's barely 25 years old. There's no way you let this guy go. Same with Trey Smith, though. And if I'm wrong, they blow big money on those two and they walk on Nick Bolton, who's even younger. He's only 24 years old. But I think the cost on Creed Humphrey will be so much that Nick Bolton at linebacker is the other one they can fit, and Trey Smith walks. Anybody want to make a prediction on how that it plays out?
I'd go with that. I agree.
Sam?
Yeah, I mean, Creed Humphrey's definitely their top priority of those three guys. They can't keep them all, though. They're going to have to make decisions to walk on guys. It's what good teams do over the long term, especially these teams that have extended championship windows. You've got to make the hard decision with some of these guys, and guards are getting paid now, and I think it's going to be hard to justify paying a guard and a center.
Yeah, no doubt. We're proudly brought to you here by our friends at David Starnes, Allstate Insurance, serving the greater KC and KC area and throughout the Midwest, covering all the important things in your world's home, business, life, even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycles, boats, ATVs, you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. We're also brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Kansas City's best for 30 years. They've been solving your parking lot issues. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. And our friends at Besame Wellness. Remember, you can save 25% on your order, your entire order, when you use that promo code podcast25 if you head into Besame. If you head to Gann, make sure you tell them you heard about it right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. So for Jeff Chadia from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold.